On the surface, the 1980s was a decade of optimism and excess. But behind the neon glow and big hair, a darker reality was taking hold. It was a time when ordinary American life was shattered by unthinkable violence, a silent nightmare unleashed on suburban streets. Stick with us as we dive deep into 5 shocking true crime cases from the 1980s. You're about to see the real stories behind the headlines, unravel the dark details, and discover why some of these chilling mysteries remain unsolved to this day. Which case scares you the most? Tell us in the comments below. 1. The murder of Adam Walsh. The summer of 1981 was a time of innocence for many, but that innocence was shattered on July 27th at a Sears store in Hollywood, Florida. While his mother, Reve Walsh, was browsing with a coupon, 6-year-old Adam Walsh was left unsupervised for a few minutes near a video game kiosk. When she returned, he was gone. The immediate search was frantic, but yielded no results. The case, however, was about to become a national tragedy. 2 weeks later, fishermen in Vero Beach, more than 100 miles away, made a gruesome discovery. A severed head found in a drainage canal, which was later identified as Adam's. The brutality of the crime sent shockwaves across the country. The rest of his body was never found, leaving the case in a state of agonizing limbo for Adam's family. The investigation was fraught with missteps, including a failure by police to properly pursue early leads and their reliance on a flawed system of communication. The lasting impact of the Adam Walsh case cannot be overstated. His father, John Walsh, a successful hotel executive, transformed his grief into a lifelong crusade for victims' rights. He and his wife, Reve, campaigned tirelessly, and their efforts led to the creation of the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, NCMEC, in 1984. John Walsh's passionate advocacy also birthed the popular and influential television show America's Most Wanted, which went on to help capture hundreds of fugitives. Though serial killer Otis Toole confessed to the crime multiple times, the lack of a body and his mental state prevented a conviction during his lifetime. It wasn't until 2008, long after Toole's death, that the Hollywood Police Department officially closed the case, publicly naming Toole as Adam's killer. 2. The Night Stalker, Richard Ramirez. In the summer of 1985, a wave of terror swept across Los Angeles and San Francisco, driven by a series of brutal home invasions. The perpetrator, who the media dubbed the Night Stalker, was a force of pure, unpredictable evil. He would break into homes, seemingly at random, and murder, rape, or assault his victims, sometimes with a combination of a gun, knife, and blunt objects. The crimes had no consistent pattern. He attacked men, women, and children, sometimes leaving his victims alive, sometimes leaving them with a message scrawled on the wall, and sometimes leaving behind a satanic symbol. The public panic reached a fever pitch. In the suffocating heat of the Los Angeles summer, residents were sleeping with their windows closed and locked, with baseball bats and shotguns at the ready. The end of the killing spree came as strangely as it began. Police released a mugshot of the suspect, identified as Richard Ramirez, after finding his fingerprints in a stolen vehicle. The photo was a revelation, showing a gaunt man with disheveled hair and a chillingly blank stare. On August 31, 1985, while attempting to steal a car in East Los Angeles, Ramirez was recognized by a group of neighborhood residents. They pursued him, tackled him, and held him down until police arrived. His dramatic capture by ordinary citizens was a moment of vigilante justice that captured the nation's attention. Ramirez was later convicted of 13 murders, multiple sexual assaults, and countless other crimes. He maintained his innocence and remained unrepentant until his death in prison in 2013, solidifying his place as one of the most terrifying figures in American true crime.
3. The Keddie Cabin Murders. The Keddie Cabin Murders are a haunting and frustrating cold case that has captivated true crime enthusiasts for decades. On April 12, 1981, a horrifying scene was discovered in a small resort community in the Sierra Nevada mountains. Inside Cabin 28, 3 bodies were found: Sue Sharp, her son John, and his friend Dana Wingate. All 3 had been bound with electrical wire and medical tape and beaten with a hammer before their throats were slashed. John and Dana's bodies were found tied up in the living room, while Sue's was found in a bedroom. Her 12-year-old daughter, Tina, was missing. The scene was perplexing. The 3 youngest Sharp children were found alive and unharmed in another bedroom, seemingly oblivious to the brutal murders that had occurred just feet away. The cabin's interior was a scene of chaos, yet it also contained an inexplicable sense of order. The lack of a clear motive and the botched initial investigation, police failed to secure the scene, leading to contamination and a loss of crucial evidence, have hindered the case ever since. Tina's remains were found 3 years later in a nearby forest, but the murder weapons have never been found. The list of suspects includes a handyman and a neighbor with a history of violence, but the case remains officially unsolved, fueled by an obsessive online community and ongoing interest from investigators who believe new evidence may one day lead to a definitive answer. 4. The Billionaire Boys Club. In the flashy, materialistic world of 1980s Los Angeles, the Billionaire Boys Club was the perfect media sensation. The name, coined by reporters, referred to a group of young, privileged men, many of whom came from wealthy families and elite private schools. The group's charismatic leader was Joe Hunt, a self-styled financial whiz who promised astronomical returns through a fraudulent Ponzi scheme. He lured in investors with the promise of easy wealth and used the money to bankroll the club's extravagant lifestyle. The group lived out the quintessential 80s fantasy of fast cars, designer clothes, and opulent parties. But the fantasy quickly unraveled. When the scheme collapsed, Hunt and his partner, Jim Pittman, found themselves in a desperate situation. 2 investors, including prominent con man Ron Levin, threatened to expose them. Hunt and a co-conspirator kidnapped and killed Levin. Hunt was also accused of the murder of Pittman's father, Ben Decter, to protect the group. The case presented a major challenge for prosecutors because Levin's body was never found. Using Hunt's own meticulously written notes, prosecutors built a case for a no-body murder conviction, relying on the details Hunt had so arrogantly recorded. The trial became a media spectacle, a lurid peek into the lives of the wealthy and spoiled, where murder became a desperate business decision. 5. The Tylenol Murders. On September 29, 1982, a seemingly innocuous act, taking an over-the-counter pain reliever, became a fatal one. 7 people in the Chicago area died within a few days of each other after ingesting Tylenol-branded acetaminophen capsules that had been poisoned with a lethal dose of potassium cyanide. The deaths were at first thought to be isolated and unrelated, but an off-duty firefighter, a friend of one of the victims, and a number of health professionals began to piece together a pattern. All the victims had taken Tylenol just before their deaths. The realization sparked a national panic.
Johnson & Johnson, the manufacturer of Tylenol, initiated an unprecedented and sweeping voluntary recall of 31 million bottles of the medication, an action that cost them an estimated $100 million. This monumental recall was not mandated by the government, but was a voluntary corporate decision that set a new standard for crisis management. The case baffled investigators, as the poisoned bottles came from different manufacturing plants and were purchased at different stores, leading to the chilling conclusion that someone had tampered with the bottles after they had reached the store shelves. While several suspects were investigated, including a man who sent an extortion letter to Johnson & Johnson, the Tylenol murders remain officially unsolved. The case completely revolutionized the pharmaceutical and food industries, leading to the creation of tamper-resistant packaging that is now a mandatory part of consumer product safety. The crimes of the 1980s did more than just fill headlines. They fundamentally altered the fabric of American society. They taught us that fear could be a product on a shelf, that an ordinary home could become a slaughterhouse, and that a charismatic face could hide a dangerous secret. These cases remain a chilling reminder of a decade that was, in many ways, an awakening to a darker reality. But as the years pass, the stories endure, and the questions remain. What do you think was the most shocking or impactful case from this list? Let us know in the comments below. If you're as fascinated by these mysteries as we are, hit the like button and share this video with a friend. And for more deep dives into the shadows of history, be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a new case.